Passion Harvest. Hello, passionate listeners. Welcome to Passion Harvest. I am Louisa, your host, International Passion Ambassador. Thank you so much for being here wherever you are in the world. I have an incredibly passionate and exciting guest today. His name is David Rippy. David's life changed dramatically when a car accident left him paralyzed from the shoulders down. He was 25 years old and in the midst of beginning a career at a Fortune 50 company. Despite this life-altering injury, David formulated a vision for his life. He was determined to fulfill his ambition to become a money manager, and he did. David went on to have a long and successful career working both at Merrill Lynch and the Vanguard group. After achieving his dreams, David wanted to help others to reach their goals and live their best lives in spite of facing the greatest hardships of their lives. Each of his 3 books addresses a different facet of existence: the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. David continues to spread his message of positivity through writing and speaking engagements. He still believes that there are more miracles to come in his life and works towards new goals and aspirations every day. This is his story and this is his passion. David, I'm so honored to have you on Passion Harvest. Welcome.
Thank you, Louisa. And I just want to mention I've watched several of your episodes with Dr. Raymond Moody and Dr. Peter Woodbury of the ARE Institute, which I've been involved with for quite some time, not working with them, but aware of their work and reading their materials and things like that. And fascinating topics. It's great to see more people taking an interest in, near-death experiences or life after death and things like that.
Just to backtrack, and we were speaking before this, and I said, amazing how far you've come, and just the accident and how it completely changed your life and how you overcome such adversity. Do you mind just briefly discussing that?
No, it's fine. What happened was I had a pretty much typical Midwestern upbringing. My father was transferred around a lot. I ended up going to school then at Texas A&M. So I graduated and came out, and I was ready to start a job with a Fortune 50 company. And I was athletic and did a lot of fun pursuits and sports throughout my life. And one night coming home, a friend of mine was driving and hit a dead deer in the road, which threw the car into the woods. And at that moment, I was instantly paralyzed.
Gosh. And I mean, it's obviously it's been an extreme journey for you just to, I mean, obviously to be where you are, but how did you make well, there was no decision, but how did you decide this is what I'm going to do? I'm going to live my life to the fullest, and I'm going to achieve everything I can despite my disabilities.
Well, I was competitive growing up. I enjoyed sports and, the competition of sport. And after that, being paralyzed, I couldn't really pursue that any longer. So even though I did decent in school and college and things like that, I never really applied myself academically, probably to what I could have done. So I decided to be more competitive. With a career, going back to school, taking a graduate course in portfolio management, and decided that, for me to feel fulfilled in this, in this journey after paralysis, I had to have some career that I thought would be interesting. I get bored fairly easily. So I found that being a career and a money manager might be kind of fun. It would be, different every day, constantly changing all around the world, the dynamics. And, I thought that would hold my interest. So we decided to pursue that. And, what I find is that if somebody comes to a traumatic event, a challenge, I think the best thing to get back on track is maybe to set some goals that, might be small goals at first. And what I did was I just came out and said, you know what, I think I'd like to be a money manager, but here I am paralyzed. I mean, how am I going to do this? I didn't know anyone in the field. I had no connections. And then I kind of thought, well, through the eyes of a money manager employer, what would they want to see in a candidate? So I figured I needed more schooling. So I went back to school and started pursuing more graduate work and, finance and things like that. I knew I needed assistance now. Before I was very independent, physically didn't need help. So now I needed assistance that could not only help me with my healthcare needs, but also could help me in a fast-paced brokerage environment. Filling out order tickets, taking client notes, all these things are important. So it took those little steps within that larger goal. So I think a lot of people, might say, you know what, I'm hurt, or maybe I'm not hurt, or I lost my job, my restaurants failed due to COVID-19. a host of things. And so what I think is important is maybe look for another goal, look for a dream you might have, but realize there's going to be steps in between that goal from point A where you're at now and maybe point B where you want to go. So I think if they concentrate on those littler goals within the larger goal, fine tune those, it can make for a better opportunity, a better thing than just saying, wow, how am I going to get there? And that's what I did. I set goals and kind of figured out what employers wanted. They wanted the Series 7 brokerage license. They wanted Series 63. So I was fortunate enough, and I went and got work experience at a competitor of theirs outside of Philadelphia. So I showed them my resume that I had work experience. I had, pursuing further education. I had the licenses out of the way. And one thing I did fail to mention though, is on the applications and in the cover letter, I never made any mention of my disability. So a couple interviews I showed up for, they were going like, wow, we like this resume. Is this the same guy that's, in the wheelchair in front of us now? So what I found was that when I brought a good assistant, trained her well to, look the employer in the eye, shake his hand, do what I would do if I could, I could see we're kind of a seamless act. So that's kind of what got me the opportunity at Merrill Lynch. And, we carried that forward to Vanguard and other companies.
How wonderful. And this is just a basic question. So obviously you're in a wheelchair, you need an assistant, a constant assistant to take care of your health needs.
Well, I don't have a lot of really health needs, which is nice. I am paralyzed, but I can't use my arms. But, I can set up my environment to where, I can go get a drink of water if I want. I can do the computers. I can do phones. So it leaves me, read on Kindle online, these kind of things, conduct Zoom interviews. So a lot of things I don't need that much attention to. Where it would require more attention would be, getting put back into bed at night, getting up the next day, getting back in the chair, so to speak, getting something to eat during the day or something. When I worked full time, was not doing the certified hypnotherapy work. Yes, that was an all-day job. So they were with me all day long, running around the office, filling out order tickets, taking client notes. So yes, that was a lot more dynamic, a lot faster pace than, writing books and things you can do on your own.
You are so positive. Did you ever have days when you just felt like giving up?
Well, giving up is kind of a hard term. I mean, there are those that have sadly taken their lives. I think I concentrated. I was the first couple of weeks after the accident. I'm, here I am. I'm 6'2". I'm benching 325 pounds. I'm strong. I'm athletic. And you think, wow, if somebody should have not broken her neck, probably should have been me, because I had a strong neck from wrestling for years and such. So that was a little bit of a surprise to me. But when you're in the hospital and you're going through the procedures, you're in pain, no painkillers or anything, and you're seeing your body starting to atrophy, or losing some of the muscle tone that you spend years working toward building up for various sport endeavors. So that was the point for about 2 weeks where I felt, wow, I don't know anything about this injury. I've never had a biology or chemistry or physiology course in high school or college. So it was all new to me. And that was quite a learning experience. I mean, it wasn't like I'd gone through school in pre-med where I said, oh, spinal cord, this is what I need to expect. And I didn't know anybody that was in a wheelchair. So the whole thing was so surreal. And like I said, the first couple of weeks you're depressed. But then the goal is to get out of the hospital. I'm still the same person. I didn't have any head trauma, which obviously very helpful. So I was able to keep a more positive attitude. And once I started setting goals, that kept me busy. So I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself, put it that way.
You are such an inspiration. How do you, obviously, how do other people interact with you, but what's it like when people feel sorry for you? Are you ever ashamed of your disability?
It's funny you mentioned that. I never really have had a lot of people around me because I don't, I'm fortunate enough not to appear physically hurt. I mean, it looks like I'm maybe just sitting in a chair. So I think that helps a lot. They don't physically see me as somebody that's really disabled, to be honest. Now, when they see me motoring around the chair, obviously that kind of gives that away. But, I think once people talk to me, I have gone out, obviously, in situations with friends and things like that to wear an assistant, to where somebody might feel a little uncomfortable, like in a cash register, and they'll look at that person and say, Now what kind of shoes does he want? You know, or something like that, thinking I can't respond. So I quickly interject and respond, and after that, it's pretty much down to normal.
And we were discussing before, you had a very, very successful career. And at one point you realized it wasn't satisfying you, and you wanted more to life.
Yeah, I got a little bored with money management, especially, I mean, I enjoy it. I still do it today. I mean, I still have some clients today I work with. I just don't do it on a full-time basis every day.
Mm-hmm.
What I found is that, you know, I had more of an interest ever since I was like 20, even before the accident. You know, I started out as a child and kind of interested in magic and things like that. And, you know, Houdini and some of the, you know, the great magicians of the day, you know, Copperfield, obviously. And it kind of went from that to where, you know, I saw somebody on TV when I was at Merrill Lynch at 25 hypnotize 3 people on stage, and they all had remarkably different lives than the lives they were leading. So I found that fascinating, and fascinated by how they could describe various hamlets in China, for instance, even though they had never been there. And another person had never been to New York described life as a flapper back in the 20s, you know, living in New York City and describing streets and buildings. And so I just knew there was more than that. Now, growing up in, you know, the Midwest in a, you know, in a church environment, you know, the minister never mentioned anything in church about reincarnation. So I always thought, you know, especially after the accident, you know, like, why me? Why am I the one in the wheelchair?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is this it? You know, am I going to spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair and that's all I'm going to know? And that's the only life I have. So I started doing more of a journey on discovering about life after death, about reincarnation. And then we learned that, you know, back in 533 AD under Council of Nicaea, that Emperor Justinian had reincarnation taken out of the Bible, leaned on about 165 church elders and, you know, under threat of taking their land away, their title, maybe throwing them in jail. So there's a lot of incentive to go along with the emperor at the time. So I think that sort of changed the course of understanding of reality, you know, for the next 1,570 odd years. And that's kind of where we are today.
And you're particularly fascinated with reincarnation and the afterlife. And I know you specialize in hypnotism as well and look at reincarnation. What happens when we leave our physical body?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of the stories are the same to some degree. You know, once we take them into a deep hypnotic trance, take them up to the moments of death, and ask them, do you see yourself coming out of your body? Describe the scene now. And, you know, a lot of times they'll describe how they can stand outside their body. They might still have kind of their human shape, but they're a little more translucent. They're not as solid. And they'll describe what happens. They'll describe that, you know, I laid there. You know, this is one particular story. It's in my next book coming out about a woman in India who got burned in a fire. It was back in the 1870s or something, and came out of her body and kept going back in and out of her body for like over 7 days till she died because the pain was too great to stay in it. And she would describe how her son, father, her husband, you know, took care of her. And then she described her funeral. It varies. A lot of especially younger souls, I find, and I know Dr. Michael Newton found this as well, that, you know, they like to go to the funeral, see who shows up. So, you know, since there's no such thing as time on the other side, a lot of spirits might stay for a while. The more involved ones will just go right back. They want to get back to work and get back down here again and finish up their incarnations. So it varies to that. A lot of them can see their body. They see their body laying there. They don't really feel an attachment to it anymore. But the most fascinating thing is when they go from there and you ask them that big question, where do you go next? You know, where do you go after you're, you know, seeing your body dead and you're going to, you know, being buried, et cetera. And then they describe, you know, how somebody comes and gets, and often it's, if it's a married couple and the spouse preceded the person I'm regressing, you know, they'll come, a grandmother will come. Normally it's somebody they know, somebody they recognize to make them feel comfortable to make that transition. And then once they go to the other side, they're, you know, usually at the gate, their spirit guides might meet them. And then they'll go in front of a council and go over that life and how they did on the lessons that they chose before they incarnated.
it's also described as a life review. So there's not such thing as judgment.
Correct. Yeah, what you find, and I talked about it in my book, The Immortal Soul, what they're like more like benevolent mentors. They're more like somebody that's been with you. And what I find interesting is finding out about their councils. One person I regressed tells me about the council. There's 3 purple souls. There's an angel. And then the next life, we're still going forward with the regression. And the next life that they passed away, we'll have 2 members that were on that original council, but we have a new one. So depending on the lessons they take, can determine who's going to be on that council. But often what I find is that there are always going to be probably at least 1 or 2 that have been with you since the beginning.
It's just such an interesting and fascinating subject. So also I hear you saying that we lead a certain amount of lives, and then eventually we no longer need to return into our physical body.
Yes, that's true. And I believe that. And I think what we find is that Dr. Michael Newton pioneered this. I didn't come up with this, but it's interesting when I say, what do you see when on the other side? And I see a lot of colors. And I'll go, really? To describe the colors, I'll go, are those souls? And yes. So there'll be green souls, yellow souls, blue souls, purple souls. And purple is the highest evolution, is what you're going to find. A lot of times purple souls don't even have to incarnate. Once you usually reach about the blue level, you're about done. And purple is where you don't have to incarnate. There are purple souls incarnating now. There are some here already, and they're here for helping to teach and trying to help waken humanity.
It's so funny you say that, and I just got goosebumps because I didn't know that, but someone did a reading for me a while ago and said you have a purple aura, a purple soul, and I thought nothing of it. But it's just interesting that you mentioned that. Not that I'm saying I'm, great, but very.
No, I think it's interesting. Yeah, like I said, there are purple souls here now. I'm a purple soul as well. I found out, from other people, and it takes a while to find out these things. But what you find is that there are here now. There's more to be born. There's one person in my book, The Immortal Soul, talked about the age of Aquarius, which is what we're in now, and I did not lead her and say, hey, what do you know about this? No, she just came out and said, we are in the age of Aquarius, sort of like what Edgar Cayce would do in a deep trance. And, talked about how they'll be more psychic, they'll be more aware, they'll be able to cross the barrier. And that barrier, when I asked her, I said, I kind of thought I knew what she was going to say, but she said that which separates us from God. So those born under the Aquarian sign in this particular time, out of all the 12 signs, are going to be more psychically aware and more of them will be born. I mean, over the next 40 years, she said there will continue to be born. And this is tapping into the divine side. This is going to the super conscious state to where they are just tapping totally in the other side of what's going on right now, the divine side. And discuss how they're going to be like anchors or beacons. And it's like a web, sort of around the earth. And how this is going to continue to take place. And it'll be in all nations and those kind of things.
So it's your belief that our end goal is to reunite with God or source. You can call it whatever you want. That's our ultimate goal.
Yeah, I think what I've learned is we do a lot of meditation. And I think what's interesting is this injury, and I kind of wondered about it, was sort of meant to kind of get me back on track is what I understand, to slow me down a little bit.
It certainly did that.
Well, it does. And you have a lot of time to be reflective. You have a lot of time to think about things, whereas before you might have, not there's anything wrong with it, but, I might have spent 2 hours in the gym that day as opposed to, meditating later on or reading a book by Edgar Cayce or something. So, it gives you a lot of time to kind of think, why me? What's my purpose here? So when you go down a path like that, I find that, with meditation, hypnosis, you can unlock a lot of those answers to learn more about yourself.
And you're extremely curious. You ask yourselves a lot of questions that you don't know the answer to, which is incredibly wonderful. That would, then I just thought of the question, are the big life events that happen in our humanness pre-planned?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when you look at it, it's kind of like what Shakespeare thought about, like life's a play. And what you find is that you're going to come down there with an impromptu script. It's going to say, I could be a female. I could be getting married. I'll have 2 children. I'll have interest in this. I might want to go into nursing or something. And then what happens during that lifespan is you're going to have various events happen in that life. Okay. That's your basic script. Mm-hmm. And these events can be something traumatic. It could be a car accident like I was in. It could be a disease. It could be a cancer. It could be losing a loved one, losing a child, losing a parent. And these are the lessons and experience that we signed up for to, kind of go through that probability. It's almost like a labyrinth. And if, we were kind of standing on top of the labyrinth, maybe looking down and seeing the various choices you can make to get to the end result. But it kind of, if you just kind of follow your life along and look at what Buddha's talked about, and he said that, what somebody does is their karma and how you respond is yours. So I think if we look at some of these events, we're going to have people in our lives that we've crossed paths with many, many, many times. And we'll feel that familiarity with someone. We'll feel that instant attraction, that love, that camaraderie. And we'll also find others that we're like, whoa, I feel I don't like this person. And I've seen it in people I've hypnotized. I've, hypnotized people that were going through a divorce or were divorced. And they would go back and recount a life back in 1800s to where, they were married to that guy and he might've took her life in that life. And, just breaking that cycle of relationships, breaking that cycle of habits. And I think if we can identify these things in our life, beyond, phobias, fears, anxieties, we can change ourselves for the better. And I give a couple examples real quick. Yeah. One of the more interesting things I've done lately is something that even I think Dr. Brian Weiss was doing for a while. I know Dr. Newton got into it. And what it is basically is if you have undiagnosed pain, phobias, fears in this life, whether it's a mental or physical pain, what a lot of times if they cannot help you, let's say it's physical. Let's say we've always had this, for example, I hypnotized a girl that was a 30-year-old occupational therapist who had this constant nagging sciatic nerve pain in her left leg. Doctors, MRIs, CAT scans, specialists, yoga, couldn't attribute to anything. She hadn't heard in sports growing up or anything like this. So she said, Dave, we go to the source of that and maybe figure it out. So going after about a couple of past lives we went to that. And I said, let's go to the source of that sciatic nerve pain in your leg. So she went there. Next thing she's recounting a life as a Revolutionary War soldier. So she's walking along with her musket, about 21 years of age. And they got shot in the left hip with a 50 caliber muzzle ball and just dropped her, it was a 21-year-old male, dropped her on the field, bled out and died right then and there traumatically. And that same pain lingered into this life. And another example, I had a girl whose ligament in the left jaw hurt all the time. Find out she was, a slave back in 1820. They had a steel bar in his mouth. It was a male. So they wouldn't starve to death. They had to force feed them because this person wanted to kill themselves. Their life was not fun, as you can imagine. So, you hypnotize them and go to that source. And a lot of times it will lead back to another life you had. So I would encourage anyone that has pain in this life that doctors can't explain, or they have these dreams about, being stabbed or shot or something, or scared, or they have phobias, go back and unlock those. Because what you find is the more you unlock those memories, and that's what we did, you don't need to carry those, that pain's gone, that life's over, it's just a life. What you find is like watching a scary movie. And one of the movies here in America, if you're over the age of 30, was called Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't know if you've heard of it or not.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, but it was where Freddy Krueger's dragging this poor high school girl down the hall, and you're just sitting there shocked. And, the more times they relive that scene, at the same time, releasing that trauma, it's like watching the movie. I mean, it's like watching a scary movie. You already know what's going to happen. You know the ending. And what you find is that pain will leave. That pain will go away.
It's interesting you talk about bleeding into other lives. So almost on a cellular level, we keep past lives or future lives within our DNA, within our body.
Exactly. And I believe that. And I think what I found also, I think we all look at our own individual lives. And I had questions like, why am I collecting African masks? Why do I like pyramids? Why do I like crystals? Just a lot of things that most, guys in suburbia grow up in athletics aren't collecting for that.
Yes. Well, most money managers don't start wondering about near-death experiences or afterlife either. So
they don't have a lot of pyramids in their house and that kind of stuff. Not most of them.
And most don't collect crystals either.
Exactly. So what I found was these led to past lives. And, that's when I started exploring a little deeper myself. And that would be, kind of hunting down what I would consider the top 5 most gifted psychic oracle types in this country or overseas. And would ask them, general questions and see where they went. And then I'd compare answers and, find out I've had lives in Egypt. And I think most of us have. Being a 5,000-year history, I found, most psychics feel most people probably have 1 or 2 or 3 lives in Egypt. Such a long time period. Lives dealing with crystals, lives dealing as a Zulu warrior in Africa. So you really, I encourage people to kind of look at what they like to do, what they like to collect, what their hobbies are. Are they a good singer when nobody else in the family can sing a note?
What they're passionate about. Yeah,
exactly. And I think they'll find that they're they either trained for some of that on the other side, especially doing probably the work you're doing. You thought about it. How am I going to, be able to help people? So you actually will find that some of the, it's not like we're all going to take horrible, tough lives. There'll be balance. I'll be in a wheelchair in this life. Probably won't be back again here, but who knows? And we'll all, we'll have different lives. We'll balance out kind of what we're trying to work toward. And, from what I've learned from the top psychics, you're looking at about 64 different archetypes. You play the doctor, you'll play the slave, you'll play the inventor, you'll play the warrior, the female, the male. You'll interchange these lives to kind of get all the lessons covered, join God, what we know is creative consciousness. And if we don't know these lives, if we don't know the experiences firsthand, in other words, if you look at souls on average, from what I've learned, only probably about a third of souls even take human form. So people coming down to earth, even, today, to be applauded. Not every soul takes a human life. A lot take mental realms and these kind of things, spirit realms.
This is a complex question. Are we living all our lives consecutively?
I've heard that. And I've heard that, from others because, there's no such thing as time and things like that. We're, piece of the soul, piece of collective consciousness. What I kind of see it as is if we took a deck of cards, okay, and let's say they were all pictures and, even though we just had one life, let's say we put 1,000 lives on in a deck of cards. And as you thumb through them, how the pictures move sometimes if you have those kind of cards. So I think the lives, yes, can be stacked together, but it's all one whole, but it'll be played out. It'll feel chronological because the way we understand time. And we've had time here. I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, if you had a life in Egypt, that was 5,000 years ago, unless it's just some huge simulation that we're all in, to make it appear that, it was the same time as now. So, I think that varies. I think what I've learned is there's what they call time, there's what they call non-time or no time. So there's different realms all through, the creations, that have time involved, or they don't have time, or they have some variance of time, or, where events are like markers. And I found that with ghosts, the people that I hypnotize that, decided to hang out on Earth for 3 years, didn't know how to get back. They had no belief structure. They died, as a young alcoholic at like 17, orphan on the streets of Boston in 1905. Really interesting story. And how they didn't, believe in anything. And I find that a lot of battlefields, a lot of the, like Gettysburg, which is close about 2 hours from me, where they lost 53,000 soldiers in 3 days. It's just full of ghosts. And a lot of them are, probably young, 17, 18, 19. And since they don't feel that sense of time, what can pass is 150 to 60 years. To them could be days. Okay, so that's where they get confused. And, unless somebody helps them to cross over, or, they figure it out later from somebody else. But you see a lot of that type of energy loops, almost like the movie Ghosts, where people don't even know they're really dead yet.
Really interesting. So you've obviously been to Gettysburg a few times.
Right.
And what do you feel when you're there?
Well, I'm not going to just turn around and tell you I feel the chills and the spirits rushing by me and things like that. Some people can't feel those type of things. Auschwitz, another sad example where a lot of people can feel that pain and that despair and depression. But Gettysburg, I've met several people who have actually seen, walking platoons of ghosts, coming out at dusk and just walking together. And that's pretty common. So it seems kind of wild, but, even a horse. One lady I, had 3 other couples with them, and they were all daytime. They were visiting with their kids. And they thought it was a reenactment about 300 yards away on the edge of the woods. And they're going, wow, look at that. That's pretty late reenactment today. They see the soldiers walking by. There's a black stallion. And that stallion broke through, and they thought it was a real horse because it was that solid looking. So its saddlebags from 1860 are bouncing on its sides, and it ran right by them. I could feel the whoosh of energy from that ghost horse. So, it even carries into the animal kingdom too.
Interesting. It's like they're stuck between worlds almost.
Yeah, they are. And, sometimes, they know how to get back fast. They're evolved enough to know how to get home. If they're young, maybe not awake, cosmic amnesia, 18, 19, no belief structure, maybe they're atheist. Sometimes they'll sit in this whirlwind of like darkness for a while. And suicide, same things. A lot of times, suicides won't cross over right away. They're, upset at what they did. It's like being in the middle of a dark hurricane. That's how I'll describe.
Obviously, I'm assuming it's dependent on each person, but is there a number of lives that we need to live or to incarnate to eventually return to God or not return into our physical body?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of times, like I said, only 1/3 of souls, from what I've understood through Newton and other people I follow, I've only taken human experiences. What I would say is that it's not based on so much the number of lives you take. It's based on how many lessons and different archetypes you've passed. And that's how it's determined. Some people, for example, could take 5,000, 10,000 years, 3 or 4 lives to pass the lesson patience. That's a really tough lesson. A lot of people don't want that lesson. It could be ego. It could be a cycle of being with the same relationship, the same partner 4 or 5 times to where it never works out. And you have to break that cycle. So souls are kind of an interesting bunch. I mean, they will take different lives. Some will take harder lives. Not saying myself personally, but, people in wheelchairs, people that are taking that hard life, they up at the other side. It's like, maybe you have a sister and parents that are really nice, like I do, for example. And they'll say, okay, I'll take that role. I'll be your parents. We all choose our parents, all of us. This person will play my sister. We've been in other lives together. Thank goodness they'll be helpful. So I see that kind of pattern. So I've met a lot of people that I know from other lives, and, across our paths at different times. Some will cross 10, 20 years, 30 years later, from our birth or whatever. And they're there maybe for a short time, maybe to help you accomplish certain things. I've had different assistants come into my life that, were very opportune when they came in. One was a very good writer, chief editor at University of Pittsburgh, and, she could help me with some of the editing and things like that. Others are good at doing videos and such, and, they came in right at that right time. So I think if we ask for it, I think if we are in the service of others, then a lot of things will come our way. And, we all heard about the law of attraction, and, we've seen a lot of prosperity preachers talk about it. But I never really was sure, does that really work? I kind of wish myself to be a millionaire and all of a sudden I'll hit the lottery next week or something. But what I found is, actually it's what you do. I think if you help others, doing them through your shows, for example, writing books, whatever, helping somebody else that's disabled, what you find is a lot of things will come back. And it is amazing how that law works. I know it's going off topic here.
No, it's funny because it was actually one of the questions that my mind was thinking of to ask you, talking about, do we create our reality? So you're reading my mind. But I 100% agree, being in service to others, but it's almost like a cycle. When you help others, you become happier, you're more positive. So I also think it's your thoughts as well, your feelings of gratitude and love that
What I learned was, it was interesting. We've done a lot of meditation. I mean, when you're in a wheelchair and, you're waiting for somebody to come in, it could be snowing outside. And, you got 3 or 4 hours or showing up. So what else are you going to do? You might as well meditate or do something, right? So, especially if you're laying down.
Gosh, you have an incredible attitude. I love it.
Well, I mean, what else are you going to do, really? So, that's when we took advantage of some pretty long-term meditative journeys and astral projection and things like that. But what I found was that life, and the way I understand it, is like a pyramid in a sense. And this is kind of, this might sound a little out there, but we had met with Buddha and some others on the other side. And kind of described it as like a pyramid to me. And we worked on that. And what you find is if you look at God, almost like on the dollar bill, where it's the very top, where the seeing eye, that's where the most concentrated energy is at the very peak. And what you find is if you look at a pyramid as being empty with 4 sides, love fills the middle. Okay. That's like the gas. And as you go higher and higher up, that love gets more unconditional, the more compressed it gets. But on the sides of that pyramid are the things we're all striving toward. One of them is truth. We need, the reality of our lives, our existence, our souls. The other is wisdom, because we have to grow in knowledge to be able to advance, to reach God. The other is service, in service to others and, helping others, build that pyramid brick by brick. And the other would be like compassion and love. How are we sharing that? And what you find is every life you take, you're going to be adding bricks to these various sides of your pyramid that you're building to get back higher and higher back up to source. And that was kind of sharing me truth, wisdom, compassion, and service. And love is the kind of that gas that fills the inside of that. And as you go higher up, you build it closer and closer. And, of course, the love gets more condensed.
Thank you. That was such a beautiful way to share and explain it, and very, very clear. Really, really great. I just want to backtrack you. You talked about encountering other souls that and family that we see and meet lifetime after lifetime that teach us lessons. What's your thoughts on soul family?
No doubt. There are soul groups, there are soul families. I've had, different gifted people tell me that, there might be 500 in this family, there might be 50. But no, what you're going to find, and a lot of times I find parents don't always come from the same soul group. Okay. They're usually they're usually in a group then they can, though. I'm not saying they don't, but they're also, because you would think, okay, it's my parents, they must be in my same soul group. Who else?
Because you assume souls are attracted to each other. We talk about soulmates that have this incredible attraction.
Exactly.
You would assume a romantic relationship.
Yeah, and I find a lot of times parents actually come from maybe another soul group. They come from an outside group. You might have done some things with them in the past. You might have been their parent in another life. I find that, we carefully choose our parents. We choose our lot. We choose our bodies too. We choose how much energy we're going to bring down. And a lot of people don't understand that. It's not that, we bring it all down at once. If you're a more evolved soul, you're going to bring less energy down. You're going to leave more on the other side. So a more evolved soul, a bluish, purple, whatever, might bring down 30% or 25% of their energy because they don't need as much. They've already had 1,000 or 2,000 lives. Life on Earth might not be as hard for them as it is others. They don't get bogged down in too much stuff.
Detail.
And they try to keep at arm's length. And, you can see people out there that are green or purple. The green I found was interesting were a lot of healers, more, maybe in occupational therapy fields, nursing fields that are into Reiki. And the blues were more into, knowledge at this point. They're, they meditate regularly. They're into Reiki, they're into shamanism, they're into crystals. And that's what you kind of find in a blue soul. They're in positions of power a lot of times. They're natural leaders. And that's what I've noticed. And then, then the purples are, coming back down just to help out. And you don't have to incarnate.
Okay. Yes, I'm just thinking about I'm just thinking about people that I know and the colors that you're referring to.
Well, what's interesting, I think I think you could find people. What I find is with greens, they're evolved. Because white's the lowest, the youngest. And what I understand is on Earth now, we have probably about 70% of souls on Earth now are white souls. Really? They're younger souls, okay? But they came down here. I mean, you know, to be applauded. They're taking tough lives, but they're trying to accelerate their soul growth. You know, because there's been a lot of people talking about how we're going to reach the point of singularity, to where, you know, this situation, you know, is going to have an ending someday. And, you know, it's not that they're going to destroy Earth School. I mean, it's a nice planet. They're not going to, you know, blow that up. And my understanding is we don't see any other nuclear weapons being set off either. But at the same time, you know, there's a lot of people out there in other realms, what are their higher realms, like us, when you talk about angels, ascended masters, things like that. Or they're on parallel planes of us, and maybe they're over in the Pleiades or in Orion or Arcturus. And I've hypnotized a lot of people that have off-planet lives. And what you find, if a soul's really, really, really old, then they're an alien, because the Earth was about 4.5 billion years old. So if their soul's older than 4.5 billion years, the Earth wasn't even here then. So they're probably from like Pleiades or Orion or somewhere like that. Some of the people I've hypnotized have described amazing lives. And I'd say, look, we're on Earth now. If you had to look at a star map, what degree would that be? How many light years away? And it's, you know, it's fascinating.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. So we don't always have to just come down to Earth. I mean, we could, there's mental realms. There's realms that are a lot easier than Earth. Earth's considered a pretty hard school because of the diversity, because of, you know,
suffering.
because the suffering, the challenges we face. And
you talk about suffering, and obviously, you know, especially you've experienced suffering, and you talked about the white souls, but suffering, even though no one wants it, it does really accelerate our soul's growth if we can overcome the suffering.
Exactly. I think that helps a lot. If you can pass that lesson. Yeah. If not, you know, you're going to come back and do it again. You're going to take something else. I had one girl in particular, it's an interesting story in my book, Immortal Soul, who sadly took her life in her last life. She was about 15 years old, was being abused by a stepbrother back in the 30s, 40s, and slit her wrist, sadly, and hung out at her house. And, you know, her mother turned to alcohol. The stepfather was gone because she, you know, and her mother didn't really believe her, you know, didn't accept it, found out it was real, and, you know, just sad in her life. And you find that it does, you impact others' karma and their path, you know, by doing things unexpectedly, like killing yourself. So that's sort of a no-no, and you will come back. What she found, she came back again in this life and described how, you know, told me about how, you know, she was in another situation where she was abused. But this time, you know, she passed it. She's a stronger person, great job, and, you know, got through it. But a lot of times you'll see them repeat hard lies. And the thing is, they come down, if they don't, you know, if they don't get hypnotized or not born awake, you know, it will be as traumatic as it was the first time they didn't pass that test. And with cosmic amnesia, you know, it's easy to kind of understand about other things. I mean, they're just caught up in that tragic moment. And, you know, I've encountered situations like that had to come back and repeat similar lives. I had a girl, not a girl, a lady, about 65, I guess, up in Massachusetts about a month ago, who was very active. I mean, you could just, she was like, I mean, she had MS at this point, and I would help her with some pain and things like that. But, you know, we did some past lives. That's what she wanted to do also. So, you know, she was recounting his lives where she fell off her horse in 1860 and, you know, broke her hip. She's writing it at like 90 years of age. I mean, this lady was a firecracker, to say the least. And, but was not passing patience and a couple other lessons. So then she confided toward the end of it and said, yeah, you know, in her divine self, she said, I took this life with MS to help slow me down so I could pass patience.
Incredible. And what comfort that must have brought her, because one of the questions people may ask is, well, why do I need to learn about these lives? But you've already explained how it can help you move on. No one wants, I call it reading the same novel over and over again. No one wants to do that. It's time to get a new book.
Yeah, and I think it's fine because we have a lot of leeway when we make choices. Now, we might be encouraged by our spirit guides to come down, you know, take a harder life. I've had people in my book, Immortal Soul, who, you know, you know, she passed all her lessons, but when she was back in front of her counselor, they go, yeah, you did great. And, you know, we see leadership qualities in you. This is the way they explain it to her. but you're going to have to take a little harder lives to be able to get up to that green level you want, things like that. I mean, it was kind of encouraged. I mean, you can sit up there and goof off, but eventually they're going to, they're very, very intelligent, very involved. And
Yes.
they're going to say, hey, we want to see you get going here. So, you'll see them all of a sudden say, whoa, they get shot down here on Earth and, cosmic amnesia. And, that's why I think it's important the work you're doing, near-death experience, my sharing about reincarnation, why we're here and taking these lessons, will give people pause, hopefully, and they'll say, you know what? I see these 3 challenges in my life now. I'm dealing with an alcoholic mother or father, or my brother's a drug, whatever it is. And see how you fit in that script, that story, and how you might help benefit them, with guided, measured words and help. And I think that's one of the lessons they take. A lot of times people take lessons to, like I said, feel the pain of a loss of a loved one. That's a tougher lesson for everyone, especially a young child or something. And those are tough lessons. And, people go, why would I do that? Why would I take that life?
Yes. Why would I suffer? I get so many questions, and I'm sure you do as well. Why would we come back to suffer?
Oh, exactly. And it's funny though, because it's not that God is punishing us. He's not up there saying, my God, I'm going to, beat these souls down over here. No, it's not like that. What it is, we take those lives. We want to experience what it is like to be disabled. We want to experience what it's like to be, a rich senator on some court. So you want to play a life's roles. There's different roles you're playing in your place of life. And I think if people can kind of say, hey, I can see that possibility, and realize that they took reincarnation out of the Bible. I mean, if we were Hindu, Buddhist, Kabbalist, Sufi, whatever, we'd already believe in reincarnation. It wouldn't be any fact. It's like, oh yeah, we took a tough life this time. We'd already know that. So that's where the awakening of America is, in the Western world is, and in Europe as well, is hopefully going to be strengthened as we go forward and more people get out there doing past lives, discussing their death experience like you do. And, let people realize that, this life might be rough, but it's not the only one you've had.
And there's more to
Let's see what we can learn from it. Let's see what we can learn from it. Let's see what we can show others by our example. And I'm amazed. I mean, I've been on YouTube enough and seen other people with disabilities, and wow, what great attitudes most of them all have. I mean, they're out there sharing some videos about their new wheelchair, or about, the therapy and all this. And it's encouraging. I mean, there's a lot of people not sitting around depressed with a bad injury. They just, kind of, you all heard the cliche that you only get what you can handle. And I'm pretty amazed at how many people are handling tough things. On the other side, conversely and sadly, there's been a lot of people taking their lives now, in the military, for example. And I think a lot of it has to do with some of the medications that they get on. They're not discovering the benefits of meditation, the benefits of hypnosis. They're not understanding why me, because they don't understand that they led other lives before. So a lot of them are sadly hurting themselves. And I think a lot of it has to do with, opiates today. That's a bad thing. And I think if some people turn away from destructive practices, set a goal, doesn't matter if it's just for that day, that week, that month, that year, and work toward that. And I think if people realize, you're if you're in a wheelchair, you're paralyzed, or you got a disease that's eating you up, they're not expecting a lot out of you anyway. They want you just to try to survive and be as happy as you can. They're not expecting you to go out and do something pretty cool.
You are such an inspiration.
Well, that's what separates, and that's what you want to do. Like, strive for somebody saying, whoa, gosh, that's so cool that he's able to do that. I see that on the internet with the people that are suffering with disabilities and such.
You are such an inspiration and such a motivation, not only for me, but for so many others. I just want to briefly touch on, we talked about the white souls, and some people haven't woken up. They get so self-absorbed in their reality that they're experiencing. Do you think some people don't have the capacity in this life to wake up?
Yeah, a lot of people won't wake up in this life. And not they don't have the capacity, but the cosmic blocks are pretty strong.
Okay.
Like what I understood was, the people, different people wake up. But a lot of times what I learned was that I'd actually signed that in my contract before I came down. That I would wake up and be aware of, a greater picture of reality and things like that. And that was just part of the understanding I had when I came down. I think others can find that away. It took me years. I mean, the Dalai Lama woke up at the age of 4 and knew who he was before they made him the Dalai Lama now. I mean, it's a really amazing story. But, and others have awake. A lot of psychics are awake. A lot of people with gifts are awake. And I've met quite a few. But what I would say is that if one tries to meditate, if one goes inside and just tries to quiet their mind, and I find the best time to do that is not during the day. We all have pretty crazy lives, especially people working full time with COVID and everything else. But do it right before you get up in the morning. Instead of setting that snooze alarm for 10 minutes, lay there, relax, visualize your body as like a battery, recharging and bringing golden light down, through your crown chakra, feeling yourself becoming, energized. And at the same time at night, if we go to bed, a lot of people have insomnia, they can't sleep, they can't quiet their mind. What you find is that theta state, which is that state you're in right when you wake up and right before you go to sleep at night, is that perfect trance state. What I tell clients to do is I say, you know what, you got a mother that's has cancer, it's worrying you, eating you up, their bills are mounting up. But we don't need to worry about that tonight. There's nothing we can do right at this moment. So I have them visualize these things, put them behind a golden door, like a vault, shut that door and lock it, and lay there by yourself and contemplate your life, contemplate yourself. And, it's easier to form goals too. What they found at just a simple Harvard study, they did what they call mindfulness for a bunch of participants. It was over 8 weeks, and it was like 20 minutes a day for 2 months, 8 weeks. What they found was after doing the MRI prior to these sessions, and the MRI difference of their brain growth as far as gray matter, glial cells, cross currents between the left and right hemisphere, forming new neural connections. What they found is it's just amazing what meditation can do. And I encourage everybody to at least give that a try. Buddha said, it's not, they asked him, this is kind of what they say is, what did you gain from meditation? And he goes, it's not what I've gained, it's what I've lost. I've lost stress. I lost anxiety. I lost fear. I lost depression. I lost all those things. So if we lose those things, if we take stress out of our life, we take anxiety, fear, depression, knowing we're immortal souls. It's been pretty much talked about since Plato. We know through quantum theory that, the soul is energy. You can't destroy energy. It just comes back in a different form. I mean, if we just accept science, let alone what the religious texts have told us for thousands of years, we come away with a greater understanding that we're just kind of, this floating soul and this energy in this web of energy. And that's when we can really do some fun things if we start to picture ourselves like that.
Yes, agree totally. And meditation for me is such a fundamental part of my life. And it was interesting how you said what you lose, because I probably hadn't thought about it in that way, what I'm gaining, but not what I lose. But I love it how you flipped it. That was wonderful. You are such an inspiration, David Rippy. All your details will be in the show notes, but is there anything else you'd like to talk to the Passion Harvest audience about?
Well, I think the thing is, if you're facing challenges, if you're facing traumatic events, if you're facing life-changing circumstances, I think the best thing to do is find meditation, find yourself, see if that, if your situation was something that maybe you thought about before you incarnated. And I think the biggest thing of all is set some goals. Set some goals for yourself to move you from where you are, where you feel stuck, and try to just inch forward. And Confucius even said, it doesn't matter how slow you go, just don't stop. And I think if we have some faith in ourselves, if we have believe in ourselves, and we want it, and take it as a challenge, a test. What I started doing early on is I would just turn around and say, wow, that stinks. My wheelchair's broken. How am I going to get to Merrill Lynch today? But you look at it as like a test. It's like you hold it away from you. Do not absorb it. Don't absorb the negative energy. Hold it out like it's, some Rubik's Cube you're trying to solve at that issue. And figure out the best way to get around it. I think if we look at our challenges as tests, it'll be a hell of a lot easier than if we absorb them. I'd also say, beyond setting goals, share what you find out, share what you learn, share with somebody else about vitamins, supplements, knowledge, and you'll see your life change too through the universal laws and the law of attraction.
David Rippy, thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest. I'm honored, I'm inspired, and I'm extremely motivated. You're incredible.
Well, you were too nice, and appreciate all the time and kind words.
Thank you so much. Bye. If you like this episode, please do subscribe for weekly passionate inspirational interviews.